get our line back in there.
Well, here we are, back out at the beach today. Today we're doing some old-fashioned surf fishing. This is what I used to do a ton as a kid, even at the beginning of my channel. Probably the first, for the first 100 videos, I would say probably 80% of those were out here fishing the surf like we're gonna do today, and it's good to get back out here. But first, let me show you the little setup. Today we're just gonna go with the very, very basic, most effective, and also simple strategy known to mankind for catching surf perch out here on the beach. So starting off at the top, we got our rod. It's a 10-foot rod with a, I believe that's a 3,000 or maybe a 4,000 size reel. Not super important. I do like to use braided main line. So this is 30 pound, or no, I think this is 40 pound braided main line. Not super important as well, but something in that range. And then moving down to our setup, I have a slider, and then a bead, and then a swivel. And the reason I like to use these sliders right here is you can clip on different shapes, different size weights depending on the conditions or what you're fishing. Today it's a little bit rough. You probably can't tell from here, but there's some big waves out there. In tight, it's a little bit calmer, which is where I think the fish might be hanging out. At least that's what I'm hoping. Fingers crossed. But we're gonna use a little bit heavier weight. So ideally, I'd like to use a 3-ounce pyramid weight with this. I couldn't find a 3-ounce this morning, so I think I'm gonna go with a 4-ounce. That was the next closest thing I had. But anyways, after the swivel is my leader. Probably a 3 or 4 foot fluorocarbon leader. I believe that's 20-pound test. You can go anywhere from, like, honestly, some places where it's super clear, people go down to 8 or 6-pound tests, all the way up to even heavier than 20. And one little tip that I like to use, or I like to tell people, is that if you're experiencing your leader kind of wrapping up against itself, maybe getting some knots in your leader, and sometimes that happens, but if it's happening more often than you'd like, the key is to go with a shorter and heavier leader. So the heavier line has more memory and it won't fold over itself as easily. And then obviously the shorter leader will just have less distance to tangle up on itself. But I think 3 foot with a 20-pound leader is a good, like, middle ground. And then I have, I believe that's a 2/0 octopus hook at the end. And some people like to use a lot smaller hooks than that, but personally I like to go for the big one, so I'll put on a little bit bigger hook than most people. And when you're using sand crabs, which is what we're gonna do today, I like to match the size of the hook with the size of the bait. And the sand crabs, you know, if you're using a lot smaller hook, the sand crab is going to kind of overpower that hook, and there's just more chance of the fish eating the sand crab and missing the hook. But when you have a bigger hook like this, especially with a bigger surf perch, I feel like your chances of catching that fish are a lot more. So anyway, that's the setup. Now I'll show you the bait. So the bait we're using are these little sand crabs, and all of these sand crabs hang out right in that wash right there where the waves are coming in and out. And there's a ton of different ways to catch them. Some people sell like rakes that you can use to go down there and go grab a bunch. But honestly, these right here are my #1 sand crab catchers right here. Just kick up some dirt or some sand down there, and then when the waves are receding, these sand crabs will kind of like fall out of the hole and you just go down and grab them. That's the easiest way, in my humble opinion, to get them. But yeah, that's what they look like. Kind of interesting looking creatures. When you look at them, you would think that this is the head right here, but that's actually the tail. The head is on this side, and if you look really closely, you can see those 2 eyes poking out. Interesting looking creatures. But the surf perch love them. Every time you cut open a surf perch, more often than not, they have these sand crabs in the stomach. Hooking the sand crabs, I don't know, different people have different strategies. I don't really think it matters too much. You just go with whatever you're most confident in. But me personally, I just like to take that hook through the middle, just like that. Super easy. The hook point's sticking out there, so if a fish comes by, there's a good chance it gets poked by that hook. But one more thing is, a lot of people like to use the freshly molted sand crabs. So sand crabs, just like any other crabs, their shells do not grow. In order for them to get bigger, they actually have to lose this shell and grow another one underneath that's a little bit bigger than this one. And when they shed this shell, right after that, their new shell is super soft. And when you're surf fishing, whether it's be for striped bass or surf perch, those newly molted sand crabs with the soft shell, they call them soft shell sand crabs, super, super effective. Those fish absolutely love those. But those are a lot harder to find. I would say out of one, every 100 sand crabs you find, maybe one of them is a soft shell, something like that. So yeah, it can be a lot harder to find. If you happen to find one, great. But if not, these hard shell sand crabs also work great. Don't sleep on the hard shell. So anyway, without further ado, let's get this in the water and see if there's any fish out there. Another useful thing to have out here in the surf is one of these little sand spikes. You can definitely cast your rod in, let it sit in the holder. I actually like to just hold the rod for the most part, just so I can feel the bite. But definitely an effective method to just cast it, drop it in the holder and leave it there. But even if you're not doing that, I like to just bring one out and set it down, because anytime you want to set your rod down, it's just a nice convenient little spot to put it, just like that. Because you definitely don't want to set your rod in the sand. If that reel touches the sand, never the same after that. And right now it's sort of lowish tide, working up to the high tide. The tide should be incoming for the next 2 or 3 hours. And generally speaking, when you're fishing the surf, most people will say the best time to fish is right around the high tide. Personally, I actually don't follow the tide as much as some people. I always feel like you can get them at any tide, just if the conditions are right. But I will say that it is probably true. If you're just going to come out for one specific tide, if you had to pick one, high tide is generally the better way to go. Oh, that was a bite. Got him. I think I got him. Actually, don't know if I got him. Yeah, I don't think I got him. So that's a good sign. I always tell people, like, within the first 5 to 10 minutes, you'll know, oh, look at that, he took my bait. Also, surf perch are like the best fish out there at stealing your bait and not getting hooked. So that's definitely gonna happen. But I was gonna say is, you always know within the first 5 to 10 minutes of fishing a spot if there's fish there, because they'll bite right away. Those fish, when they're there, they're hungry. You'll know about it. But anyways, good sign. Let's go get another bait on, get back in there. Another common misconception is that you have to cast way out to catch fish in the surf. But those fish that you're looking for are coming in close. They're coming in to catch those sand crabs just like we were earlier, digging our feet around in the sand. So the sand crabs don't hang out way out there. The sand crabs are right in here where the waves are coming in and out. So in order for those fish to get those sand crabs, they have to come in that same little area. There we go. There's one. Got him that time. Riding the wave. Oh yeah. That one will definitely keep. Looks like he swallowed it anyways, so we'd be keeping it no matter what. But look at that fish. Beauty. That's a barred surf perch right there. Probably about 12 inches. Definitely get a lot bigger than that, but that's still a nice fish. See, it's got those bars down the side. That's what gives it its name, barred surf perch. And yeah, these are good eating. Some people don't like them, but I personally definitely enjoy them. And this guy swallowed it anyway, so I'm sure it's gonna bleed once I get this hook out of here. All right, hook's out. He's going in the bag. My perch pouch. Shout out Hook to Cook, another fellow YouTube guy. Designed this specifically for surf fishing, to throw your fish in. I know I'm not using it to its full advantage. You're supposed to have this at your hip, but anyway, it's still a good little thing to put your fish in out here on the beach. And we just cut the gills here, so now we're just gonna wash them off real quick. Got my blood off of there. Doesn't really matter because this bag has little drainage holes at the bottom, so it doesn't need to be thoroughly washed, but just give it a little rinse, open her up, slide her in. All right, that's one. There's a fish on here. That's what I was saying, is that fish, sometimes when that rod's in the holder, it can do all the work on its own. Not a huge one. Oh yeah, I forgot. I didn't have a sand crab on there. I actually had a gulp sandworm. I'll show you that in a second, but so there's no size limit on these fish. You can keep any size. There's just a bag limit of 10 per person per day. But I don't like to keep them when they're this small. I just feel like it's a lot more work than what you're gonna get out of it. I like to keep them maybe 10 or 11 inches and up. That one's probably only like maybe 6, 7, I don't know. Anyway, we'll toss them back. And this is what I caught on right here, a little gulp sandworm. Kind of an interesting little bait. Nothing really that exciting about it, but it mimics a little sandworm, which is another natural forage that these perch feed on. And yeah, you can fish it just like a sand crab. I didn't even have it moving out there, just on this fish finder rig. Well, no bites for a little while, so I think it's time for lunch. I'm getting hungry. All right, put that there. Lunchtime. That brings me to the sponsor of today's video, which is lunchbox. And this is probably, I'm just gonna go ahead and say, this is the coolest lunchbox that I've ever owned. It's not just a lunchbox. If I open this up, you can see it's got a little heating system inside here. You don't need any fires, you know, no electricity out here. It's all running on this battery power, and it's heating up my lunch. I have a breakfast burrito inside here that I took out of the fridge this morning. I turned it on, set the time, set my lunch time to 1 p.m., which is what it is now. So it automatically knows to start heating up your food 2 hours before you want to eat lunch. So it started at, 2 hours ago at 11 a.m. started heating things up, and now I can just feel it. It's super warm in here. Breakfast burrito has been essentially reheating for the last couple hours, so it's ready to go. Without further ado, let's open her up and see what we're working with. Definitely hot. Whew. This would be especially good on like a cold day, by the river or out here on the beach. Today's not super cold, but regardless, still always a privilege to have a hot meal out in the outdoors. Definitely not the easiest thing to organize. My breakfast burrito. Oh man, it's not often I get a hot meal out here while I'm fishing. I wish y'all could feel how warm this is. Man, this is like fresh out of the oven essentially. Whew. I don't know if you can see the steam, but it's hot. And you can also program the lunchbox to heat to different temperatures. I think it goes anywhere from 170 degrees up to 220. I think I set this for 210. It's pretty much perfect for this burrito. And if you watched some of my recent videos fishing out on the kayak, there's been days where I just had to go home because it was too cold. As diehard as I am out here, sometimes the cold gets the best of me. So not only is it kind of a luxury to have a hot meal out here, it's also practical to keep you fishing longer. So I will definitely be taking this with me out of the kayak sometime in the future. This isn't the last time that you've seen this lunchbox. Check the link down in the description. I'll leave all the information down there. Shout out to Lunchies for not only sponsoring this video, but providing me with this hot lunch out on the beach. This is gonna fuel me to go for the rest of the day. Well, initially I thought it was gonna be decent here. We got one nice bite right away. Caught another fish not too long after that. But really after that it's been pretty dang slow. So it's time to move. I always tell people with surf fishing, it's best to stay mobile, keep moving until you find the fish. And we did find the fish here for a little bit, but they are no longer to be found here, so it's time to move. We're gonna hit up another beach. Okay, spot number 2. Don't have a lot of time, about an hour left before I have to get out of here. But we're gonna work this little area here. Work this about, I don't know, 200 or 300 yard stretch of sand back and forth. There's a nice little trough coming in here. We're going a little more mobile now. I just brought my camera gear. This setup, no more tackle, just a couple of different grub styles. And we're just gonna go super quick through here. See if we can find anything. If not, we're out. Got him. Got him. Little guy, but I got him. Well, not too bad. You know what? That'll eat. Definitely not a monster, but we'll take it. And what I did was as I was casting that grub, I was kicking up some sand. I kicked up a few sand crabs, so I took off the grub. Same setup with the Carolina rig, put a sand crab back on there, and it paid off. Got him. Obviously, not the giant that we're looking for, but that one's just about big enough to eat, in my humble opinion. So I mentioned earlier there's a trough right here, and if you haven't fished the surf before, generally speaking, what you're looking for are deeper pockets of water, you know, around or next to shallow water. And right here there's like a channel. It's the trough right here. So there's like the bank, deeper water, and then shallow water behind that. And when you get something like that, the water, you know, if you see out there, the waves are breaking big time out there, and that water tumbling over that shallower sandbar will knock up food like sand crabs, other shrimp, worms and stuff. And then these fish are hanging out in shallower or in closer to shore where it's not as rough and turbulent, where they can kind of hang out without getting pushed around by all the waves. And that food will come off that sandbar right in close here. Those fish are just like waiting. It's like a conveyor belt of food coming in for the fish. So they're waiting right there for mostly sand crabs, but there's other different crustaceans, little shrimps, and clams, stuff like that. They'll eat all of that. They're not super picky, but I think the most abundant food source is these sand crabs, which is why they work so well as bait. All right, we're headed out. Another day on the beach in the books. This was a fun one. A little bit of a tough bite, but we got a couple of nice fish that we're gonna take home and cook up for dinner, so you can't complain with that. Nice little sunset behind me. Probably not the best lighting for this shot, but be a nice little profile view, I guess. What do they call it? Silhouette. That's the word I was looking for. But anyways, hope you learned a little something about surf fishing. It's literally one of the easiest types of fishing we can do here in the Bay Area, especially in the saltwater. You don't need a kayak, don't need a boat, don't need fancy rods. Just need your fishing license, and you're well equipped to catch some fish out here. You can take family, take your dog, take some friends. Surf fishing is one of the easiest and most fun way to get out and go fishing, because regardless, even if you don't catch any fish, you get to go spend a day out at the beach. Can't beat that. If you bring a barbecue, you'll have a day. But anyways, thank you all for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. And until the next one, we'll see you.